Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 170 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization this week as we highlight the Gaston County Museum of Art and History in Dallas. And we have Alexandrea Pizza. Did I say that right? Close enough? Pizza. Come on, Rachel. Help me out here. With us today, Allie is the director of the museum. So, Allie, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, we'd like to get right to it. So, if you don't mind, Allie, just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share, then we'll get into talking about the museum.
Absolutely. So Gaston County is my adopted home.
Okay.
I was born in Philadelphia and grew up in a rural part of southern New Jersey, often called the Pine Barrens. It was all Lenape land, and I grew up in a log house. So in a lot of ways, a very similar area to Gaston County in that it's a rural area, or was a rural area outside of a major city. So I had a great opportunity to grow up, hunting and fishing and walking in the lake and climbing trees.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
It was. And then my father was a successful businessman, and my mother was an artist. So in the summers, we would go for art classes in the city of Philadelphia, and that was a really formative experience for me. So I really had the best of both worlds, this opportunity to explore the backyard and the woods that were my home, and then really to have my eyes open up in this major city with all these opportunities. So really shaped my career path, actually.
Okay. So what brought you to Gaston County?
So Gaston County, we moved 15 years ago. Both my husband and I took positions at Belmont Abbey College. So he is an English professor there, a tenured professor, and I was director of preservation. So we actually, we spent years living abroad. We lived in Oxford, England for 5 years.
Wow.
Yes, and we came back and he said, I've got a job offer down in Charlotte. And I said, there is no way in that new city that there are opportunities for a rare book conservator, which I was at the time. And he came down to Belmont Abbey and he said, well, you won't believe it. They have a rare book collection of 23,000 rare books. And I said, well, sounds like it was meant to be. So we were both hired and came as a team down to Belmont, North Carolina.
All right. Well, very good. So, as we like to say, you couldn't get here fast enough, right?
No.
So, you said 15 years ago?
15 years ago.
All right. So that's long enough that we'll call you a local.
Sounds great.
Or close enough. So I know we got, I've been from Gaston County. I'm very familiar with the Gaston County Museum of Art and History just because of I've been there many times over the years. So just tell us, first of all, about the museum. What is it? There may be some listeners who unfortunately aren't familiar with it. And then maybe how did you end up at the museum?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Gaston County Museum of Art and History is nearing our 50th anniversary.
Okay.
So in 2026, we celebrate 50 years, the same as our country's America 250th. And so we were started in the American Bicentennial, 1976, with thousands of museums across the country. About 10 years ago, they did a study, and there were, in 2014, more museums in the U.S. than there were McDonald's and Starbucks combined.
Oh, wow.
So since the pandemic, that has changed, but we've been around for a long time, and it's been a legacy for Gaston County. And basically what we do, our mission is to inspire curiosity and connection by weaving together the art and history of Gaston County. And we serve our community free of charge. We have a collection of 83,000 works of Gaston County art and history, mostly history. So artifacts documenting the history of Gaston County and the region. We are very specific to Gaston County. We don't go much farther out than Charlotte. And we don't have any dinosaurs, so we are not the Shield. We do, however, do a lot of other activities. We have 12 exhibitions a year. We talk obviously about textile history in Gaston County, but about so much more. Right now, our feature exhibit is Tony's Ice Cream, and it's about the history of the business, immigration to Gaston County, and really tying our area to the larger American story. So we have Events, we've got our most popular event of the year probably happening every Friday this month in October, which are the Haunted Dallas Ghost Tours. And we sell out every Friday, 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, the tours. It's $10 per person, free for members, and we cannot add enough of these tours. We have multiple tours going at one time, and people love their ghost stories.
So how many people at a time?
About 25. So 25 on a tour.
Is this a walking tour, I'm assuming?
A walking tour of downtown Dallas. And if you're familiar with Dallas or not, it's a very historic square. So we pretty much walk around the square, and we do talk about ghost stories that are rooted in history. So, most of the ghost stories that we have heard and learned about over the years have come from historic figures or historic events in Dallas, because as we know, history can be pretty terrifying. And
you're guaranteed to see an apparition, correct?
Yes, sure. It might be on the third floor window. If you're standing out front.
Something that might have been pre-planned or pre-posted up there.
Yeah.
No, well, that's interesting. I have to admit, I'm a horror thriller book reader on occasion, and I grew up being a Stephen King fan.
Oh, you've got to come out then.
So that's interesting. I mean, I've done like a Charleston ghost tour. What is that noise?
Oh dear, we're talking about ghosts.
Did you hear that? Can you hear that?
I hear it.
Oh wow! Right when I started
come to the ghost tours, y'all.
Right when I started talking about ghosts, we got some serious, strange back feeding noise.
All right, here we go.
It's me.
Maybe it's you, Stephen. Maybe it's not.
All right. So we were talking before, Allie, right? This is the kind of thing. Oh, maybe it was my microphone moving. Maybe. Yeah, we were talking about. Listen, that's an example. We will not cut that out. We will not edit that out. That's just how we roll here at Gaston's Great. That was very strange, but it was strange that the second we started talking about the ghost, we had a ghost in the machine.
Well, I do hope that Jonas Hoffman didn't come with me today, because everyone at the museum would be disappointed. I'll tell you, there are the ghosts in the Hoffman Hotel, where our museum is located, is a historic 1852 hotel, built by Daniel and then eventually owned by Jonas Hoffman, and it's an everyday experience for our staff. So he's a jokester. So
all right.
Really amused with the modern elevator, and if you don't ask him to come on, the door won't close.
So at least the lights didn't go off, or nothing moved. Well, actually, my microphone did actually move a little bit, didn't it? Okay, well then.
Oh dear. All right.
This is perfect for the month of October episode. So I'm not sure where to go now. After that, maybe we should just shut this episode down.
Come see us in Dallas on Friday nights.
Have an exorcism between here and home today. Make sure nothing follows me home. Allie, what have you brought to GSM today?
So sorry.
So this is great. I appreciate you mentioning that, because and you can see all this on the website. Can people register, pre-buy tickets, or
yes.
Okay?
Yeah. Right. So there's a link on the website. You can get your tickets ahead of time. Sometimes we take a walk-ups, but usually it's sold out by that point.
Yeah, I will tell you. Go to the website. You can't miss it, because it's the main.
Awesome.
It pops up. Because I spent some time on there trying to prepare a little bit for today. So, tell us maybe. Besides that, obviously that's the current focus in the month of October, because we're recording this. What's today? The 15th. Is that right? October 15th.
Yeah.
So, maybe describe the day in the life at the museum, or just current initiatives besides the ghost tours, or what goes on through the year. I know that's a big question.
Absolutely.
But kind of to give our listeners a little bit of a taste for what the museum is really about.
Absolutely. So when you come to our museum, there is no admission fee. So we are open Tuesday through Fridays from 10 to 5 and Saturdays 11 to 4. We always have exhibits happening, both art and history. So our second floor, there are 3 floors of exhibits, and you'll get to see our feature exhibits like Tony's Ice Cream, and then rotating art exhibits. Right now we have Nellie Ashford, who's a prominent Charlotte-based folk artist who studied under John T. Biggers, who's one of our most important artists here in Gaston County, which I'm sure we can talk about. We are a community museum, and that's the thing that really sets us apart from other museums. We represent this community, and it's something we're really proud of. So, the stories that we tell are relevant to the people who live here, who grew up here, who have history here. And that's really our focus. So we're really tapped into what Gaston County is proud of, the hurdles that they've overcome, the future that they want to see. and that's something our team does really well. So we're intricately involved in this place, I would say.
It seems like so for those who don't know exactly where is the museum located, what's the address?
So it's 131 West Main Street in Dallas, 28034.
Basically on the outside of the square, correct?
Right, yes. Yep. So we're the biggest building on the square, across from the white courthouse in the center. We're the big brick building, and we've just redone our facade, so it's beautiful. Big white porches, so can't miss it.
Am I remembering correctly, at one time there was another building with archived information or something?
Yes,
yes.
So that's absolutely right. So with our 83,000 objects, we cannot keep them in the historic hotel.
Sure.
So they are at a collections and archives center where we do research visits on Dallas Cherryville Highway. You can make an appointment. A lot of times people come and say, my grandmother donated a family quilt. I live in Minnesota. I'm here in town. Can I see it? We have people come from out of state to say, I grew up here, and we just recently accepted the letters from a family soldier from the Confederate War, from the Confederate Army, donating all of those materials, his Bible, his photograph, his letters. And so that kind of thing, it's so interesting. And it gives us this tangible way to talk about history and that connection point. When people see something like that, all of a sudden the questions start, and that's how we begin to engage.
So over the last couple of years, can you describe maybe some of obviously I remember reading about the Tony's ice cream. If you're not familiar with Tony's, surely people are familiar with Tony's if you've lived here long enough. They're one of the older businesses here in town by a long shot. But what are some of the other exhibits that you've had? I'm not sure, again, this is out of my area of expertise, obviously, the rotating exhibits, or and what's the time period that you might have something like that? Is that a fair question?
Yes, absolutely. So there are always permanent exhibits on textile history and the history of Gaston County. Anytime you come into the museum, you can learn about that. Our small art exhibits are usually only about 3 months at a time, and that way we can feature a lot of local artists. But our feature exhibits are for 1 year. So Tony's will be up till this May. It takes us about a year to put together an exhibit that size.
Right.
Our next one is actually funded through North Carolina Humanities, which is a great opportunity for our museum on the history of African American life and culture in Gaston County.
Okay.
And that will open in the spring. So before that, we did niche knits, which was one of my favorites. And we did the history of hosiery mills and stockings, and we had a ton of fun with that. The walls were pink and purple, and right now they're blue for Tony's. So every exhibit we do is on the website, so you can always find out what's happening at the museum.
So I allowed you to skip over a question I asked earlier. So how long have you been at the museum, and how did you end up at the museum?
Yeah, great question. So I was at Belmont Abbey for 7 years, and I always had my eyes on the museum. A story I love to tell is that we moved to Charlotte when we first got here in 2010, and we had 3 children, 3 and under. And we were, that year in 2010, the Mint Museum uptown, the Gant Center, and the Beckler all opened up. And yet the very first museum that I ever went to was the Gaston County Museum of Art and History. And let me tell you, from Charlotte, it felt like 4 hours with 3 babies in the back seat. But there were a couple of reasons I chose that. First, it was free. Second, I looked at the map and I was like, there's a green area across the way, and if my son is, throwing a fit, we can run outside and he can run all around. And I was interested in it. So I had my eyes on it for a long time. When we got there, I remember thinking, wow, this museum has a ton of potential. It's nationally accredited. They've got great collections. The history in Gaston County is so rich. I don't know if people realize, I've lived all over the world, but Gaston County, per square foot, we have shaped labor laws for this entire country. All of that happened here. So there's just an immense amount of artistic legacy with the Biggers family. So I had my eyes on it. I came to visit the museum a bunch for different exhibits, and a position came up for assistant director, and I really enjoyed my leadership role at Belmont Abbey. I thought, okay, this is really something I'm passionate about. So I applied, and the rest is history. So 2017.
Okay, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. So, and then just to clarify, you're coming up next year is 50 years,
50 years.
Of the museum. All right. So in your time, so going back to 2017, in your time at the museum, is something stands out that you're most proud of being involved with, proud of seeing the museum accomplish an exhibit that just stood out and said, wow, or what's coming up, or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I would say the thing that I'm most proud of is less tangible than an exhibit or a program we've done. When I came in 2017, the museum had been through 4 directors in 4 years. we didn't have a strong standing in the community. We had staff who weren't necessarily museum professionals. It was a small-time organization. And, I've worked for some really incredible large institutions. So one of the benefits of that is really seeing, okay, here's the highest level you can get to. What can you do with your small budget or,
right.
staff, whatever it is, to get close to that, right? So everyone asked me, what's your greatest hurdle? And of course they're like, is it money? Is it staffing? And I said, no, it's perception in the community. It's our relationship with the community. So over the past 8 years, I've worked really hard on that. I've met with individuals, and I heard all the time in the first couple of years, oh yeah, I called that museum. They never called me back. Or I tried to give them my family Bible and they didn't want to take it, And so I spent a lot of time engaging with community, listening, asking questions. And over that time, we have built one of the most professional staffs I have ever worked with. We have museum professionals who have degrees and experience across the world working on our team. We have built an incredible reputation in our community. And out of that, 2 years ago, we received a significant collection from the John T. Biggers, an artist whose birthplace is still standing there on 321. Family members are on our board. And I was hoping for one piece of his, just one. And I thought, that's a goal. That's something I'm going to get to. And in September of 2023, we received 250 pieces of his work. So
that's more than one.
It's more than one. But I think the accomplishment for me in that was not necessarily, of course, the collection is incredible. It's beautiful. It documents his creative process. But what it really was for me was the trust that family and the community had in our museum. It could have gone to the Mint Museum. It could have gone, to the Smithsonian, but it came to Gaston County. And there's a reason for that, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that people who live here take that family and that name for granted. The impact that family has had, and him specifically, on a broader scale.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes, I think it is. And the way that I usually describe it is, when you go on vacation, you always go out of your community. You're like, oh, I want to go to Europe, or I'm going to go visit, California. It's very rare that you're like, you know what, let's take a vacation here at home. So, it's, yes, I think that there's certainly some that take it for granted, but probably more that it's just so comfortable. It's, this is an artist. Yeah, I've heard about him. Oh, Jim, Biggers, he taught me, at Highland or wherever it was, but John T. Biggers and his nephew, Jim, are international names.
Right.
He founded the art department at Texas Southern University. But the thing that I love most about his work is that its context and its importance comes from Gastonia. He traveled the world in 1957. He got a UNESCO fellowship and went to Ghana and went to West Africa. And he, did drawings, and he got a lot of inspiration that really shifted his entire career and his artistic work. But what he wrote about is how the women reminded him of the women in Gastonia, about the feeling he had gathered around the fire, of his father telling stories and the women making quilts in the background. And you see that throughout his work. And so that sense of place is just so important. Yeah.
Yeah, so you mean like families getting together and doing things as a family, and face-to-face interactions and things that technology has kind of, what's the word? I don't know. I don't want to overstate it, but it's damaged that a little bit, I think.
I think yes, and I think that's why one of the things that is encouraging to me that we see in this younger generation, of course, I'm raising them, and many other people are saying, oh, they're on their phones all the time, or oh, they're so, it's hard for them to disconnect. That generation, when they come to the museum, the most common question we get is this real? They want to know, they want to feel, they want to touch, they want to smell, they want to see. They look for those tangible experiences, and that's where museums can really make a difference.
Yeah, so to your point, 2 episodes ago we had Dixie Abernathy on.
Oh, yes, great.
talking about Cramerton, and this ties into some of the unknown history, in my opinion, of an impact that Gaston County has had on a bigger scale.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, what else? And there's so many families, and guys, we could talk about this for 3 or 4 hours. I won't, Rachel, because I'm sure Allie has other things to do besides talk to me for the next 5 or 6 hours. Is there not any other story about the impact you've seen the museum have on our community, or I'm not sure that's the right. We normally like to ask the question of certain organization, impact on a specific family or the town of Dallas, or just in general. What kind of impact do you see since you've been there? Of like, wow, this is why this is why I do what I do. This is why the museum's here.
Why. Exactly. We see so many examples of that, and I have a couple favorites, and I would say, first, we're not just a repository. We don't just gather history and hold it in the room and not let anybody see it. One of our core parts of our mission is education. Inspiring that curiosity that asks people to ask questions like, how does my life in Bessemer City or Ranlow, how does it connect to a larger American story? Because we are all part of that. And I think it's in the small, everyday experiences that you really do see that connection, that human connection that we have to each other across all kinds of, socioeconomic statuses and other things. But there's one story that I really love, and it was a few years ago, and I just have to share it with you because it was one of those connection points, and I was closing up the museum, and it was raining outside, and we had about 5 minutes left, and this little boy walks in, and he didn't speak great English, and he was probably about 10, 11, and he ran in, and he was sweating, and he said, "Do you have a piano?" And we don't really have a piano that you can play, but we have a pump organ, right? So you have to pump the pedals to get the air into it, and then you can play it. Well, it was all the way up on the 3rd floor, and I said, well, and kids can play on it, adults can play on it. And I said, well, we do have a pump organ. It's up on the 3rd floor. And he said, okay, how much time do I have? And I said, well, we close in 5 minutes, but I knew at that moment I would stay all night to let that little boy play that piano. So he ran up, and I hear his steps, his feet running all the way up the steps, and he plays until he starts to hear staff leaving, and he left. And I just thought, that moment, that little connection where someone thought, I need to express myself, to find something. And he found us. I don't know how or where he came from or how he got home, but, he found us. He knew there was something at the museum, and he was able to go do that. Maybe it was for class, for practice. Maybe he just, I don't know. But we were that place, and we were open, and we were welcoming, and that's an impact on one person's life. That
and a young kid too.
Yeah.
On top of that, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was 10 or 11, I would say, "Hey, let's go to the museum."
I was, but that's obvious.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now that's not true. I mean, I made trips to Raleigh with school, and obviously, Gaston County Museum is similar to the Shield Museum. People that live here take it for granted, because I grew up going to those. Matter of fact, I lived on Churchill Drive, so I lived across the street from the Shield Museum.
That's awesome.
I walked through the parking lot to Greer Junior High, so I really took it for granted. It's kind of like
it's in your backyard.
Yeah, I mean, it just you do take that for granted.
Well,
so
if it makes you feel better, we took our field trips to the Statue of Liberty, and every year I'd say, "Oh, we're going to the Statue of Liberty again." So I mean,
yeah, being in New Jersey, that's funny.
Yeah.
What about looking ahead for the museum? What's that classic question is 5 to 10 year plan, but I don't know about the museum world, but we know like here at our business, we don't do that anymore because things change so fast.
They change so fast.
So what's in store for the future of the museum? Any big plans? Anything happening? Or
we definitely have big plans. I can't share them all yet, but they're coming. I would say as director and as a museum professional, I see myself as a steward. We're all here for a short period of time, and we make our impact in that time that we have. it's not my museum, but I want to establish the museum so that it's successful enough that it has a lasting legacy for Gaston County. In 5 to 10 years, we'll be solidly into our second 50 years, and what I want that to look like is a more professional museum, a more engaging museum. So when people come in, they don't just see objects on display, but they see them working. How did the hydroelectric dynamo actually power energy into the macadam mill? What did that really, really look like? What did it sound like? And so our team is really working on how can we renovate our exhibits to really be state of the art in a way that people say, you know what, I have got to get over to the Gaston County Museum. I was a kid last time, and it is a whole different place. So that's what I see for the future.
All right. So this is a classic question I like to ask. Remember, this is a podcast about Gaston County, good things in Gaston County. Why is Gaston County better? Because the museum is here.
Oh my gosh, well, I could give so many reasons, but gosh, there's so much that I love about Gaston County. There's so much Gaston County has to offer, from parks and getting on the river and kayaking and all the outdoor things. But when people come to a place, they seek out cultural experiences. They want to know about the place they're coming to. And as we all know, Charlotte is exploding. And it's coming across the river. And Belmont has already changed. And Mount Holly's changing, and it's going to keep on coming. How do we represent the pride that Gaston County residents, longtime residents have? We have 13 municipalities, and each one is so individual. And the pride in place and in history and connection to that history is so relevant, and you see it when you talk to people, you hear it. So Gaston County Museum of Art and History, that's our job. That's how we connect with people who come here. So no matter what happens, as Dallas changes, and it's happening, they can always find out about where we came from and where we're going. So I think we have a lot to offer, and we really do. We connect people to the past, but we also get them excited about the future. What's Gaston County going to look like in 5-10 years?
Yeah, that's what's unique about it, is just the history of Gaston County, which is unique and impactful. And so I appreciate that greatly. And yeah, as to your point, who knows what's going to be going on in 5 or 10 years, but I know the museum plays an important part. And and I think I'm going to sound like an old curmudgeon here, Rachel, but our youth needs to, it's important. History is important.
Yes, it is.
And understanding it and just hearing about it.
It is. And I think one of the things, too, as an art and history museum, we also give students the opportunity to express themselves. So, we go out to all the schools. We do a lot of outreach. And we have a really popular program they call us Vandals. And it's about the difference between street art and graffiti. And, if you go to some big cities, and even here in Gastonia, you see murals all over the place. So we talk about that. And they get the opportunity to, quote unquote, tag their school with chalk. So it's erasable, but it's really popular with middle and high school students. So we get this opportunity to engage with them, not just on the history of an art form, but also like, how is this relevant to your life? And they get so excited. It opens up a whole new world to them, and you see that future in their eyes, and that's exciting.
All right, well, that's very good. So before we finish, we'll make sure that we share where our listeners can go to find out more information, find out about the ghost tours, anything coming up. But is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked? Anything you make sure you want to get across? I mean, before we finish too, we'll make sure you have the very last word. But is there anything that you want to make sure that we cover?
I would say probably how to support the museum. Museums, libraries, parks and rec, we're those non-essential departments. And our museum is a 501c3 and a county department. So we're duly governed. Become a member. Come out to our programs. Follow us on social media. We've got a big 50th anniversary kickoff that's going to happen November 11th. We're going to do $50,000 for 50 days to the 50th. So, if you're a business, think about sponsoring. If you're an individual, become a member. There's just lots of ways to support the work we're doing.
I mean, is that the biggest need currently with the way where we are Is it funding? Is it fundraising? Is that kind of the biggest current need?
I would say, fundraising is always an ongoing thing, but the stronger we become, the more we can meet our goals and our mission. And so really just getting people involved and having that awareness of, hey, this is my museum. This is my history. This is my experience. Let me bring my family here and being a part of that.
So something we'll shift gears just briefly with a few more personal type questions that we make our guests endure for coming on to this high value podcast that we produce here at Gaston's Great. So, Allie, what is something very few people know about you?
So I would say in this role now that I'm at the museum and no longer at Belmont Abbey is that people may not realize I'm a bench-trained book and paper conservator. So I did a 5-year apprenticeship in Oxford, England at the Bodleian Library, and I had the fortune of working on some incredible things. My favorite probably being Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the original documents.
You're kidding me.
Oh, no. It was amazing and creepy. And you could actually see what we call marginalia, so writing in the margins of Percy Shelley's handwriting and corrections and suggestions. So that was pretty incredible.
That's a really interesting story too. If you're not familiar with it, of how that came about with Lord Byron, and it's really interesting. So anyway, I don't want to get into that, but if somebody wants to go into how that's a little contest, whatever they were doing when that was written. So
absolutely, and I guess that's also a pretty good Frankenstein for our October theme here.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
And it was, the ink at that time was really dark, and I remember being alone in the conservation studio one evening with it, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. So that, and I had the opportunity to advise on the conservation of Queen Elizabeth I embroidered Bible. Pretty incredible stuff. So just getting to see and to work on. Yes. So that's maybe something people don't know about me. There are very few of us in the world that are still trained as conservators in that traditional apprenticeship process. So it was a very formative experience for me.
Wow, that's legit.
Very, very legit. Yes.
How about, are there any, I always like to ask our guests, is there a book or something you would recommend? Obviously, I can't imagine your background, but so two questions. Are there any, I think I've seen a few, but are any really good books about Gaston County out there that you're familiar with, or is there anything that you could recommend to our listeners related to that?
There are so many, so it depends. Okay. I mean, there are a lot of academic books. Robert Reagan has done the history of the textiles, of course, and then you've got the recent ones on Cramerton from Dixie Abernathy.
Right.
We've got a bunch of ghost stories and monsters from North Carolina in our gift shop. So lots of things like that. There's also, I would say, fiction, historical fiction, like Wiley Cash's book, The Last Ballad. So lots of different options, actually, about Gaston County. It was really far-reaching. Yeah.
So what about just a book in general? The question I like to ask, is there a book, a blog, an article, another podcast, or something that you as a, for lack of a better term, historian, so to speak, that you would recommend to our listeners?
So I am an avid reader. I can't get enough. I will read anything and everything I can get my hands on. I am a lifelong learner. So I usually, when I'm asked this question, I go back to the last thing I read, which was a beautiful book a colleague recommended to me. It's a short book, but it's called All the Beauty in the World, the Metropolitan Museum of Art and Me.
Okay.
And I believe it's Patrick Bringley, the author. But what it's about, essentially, he lost his brother in his 20s in a young age. He had a big-time job at the New Yorker, and he decided to leave it and become a security guard at the Met, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And for 10 years, he held that position. And the book it's about overcoming grief. But for me, really, it's more about listening. And it was such a beautiful book that I smiled the entire time I read it.
Okay, well that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, and he talks about being assigned to different galleries, and the way that, although it's an art museum, I think people don't often realize how connected art and history are. It takes you across centuries and to different civilizations, and again, that just kind of listening and looking deeply at something, and It was a beautiful book. I absolutely recommend it. And
Oh,
you don't
well,
have to
good.
know anything about art to read
Right.
it.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, I'm a big reader as well, so I'm always looking for something new and different to throw
Awesome.
in with my business and personal development stuff. Like right now, I literally read Dixie's the first book in 2 days, which is
So
super
good.
unusual for me
Okay.
to read that quickly. So I'm already on the second one. I'm gonna have to wait for the third one
I
to come
know.
out next
It's
month.
coming soon. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'm on the second one too. So
Yeah, no, November 11th, I think, is when that comes out. So
yes.
again, remember, we're still focusing a little bit on Gaston County. So besides the Gaston County Museum of Art and History, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
Gosh, there are so many reasons. I think a little bit like we were talking before about the pride that Gaston County residents have in their history, in their legacy here, their connection to that history. So many families that can remember generations of, establishing businesses and, industry and all kinds of things. But one of the other things that's really impressed me about Gaston County, and especially in comparison to big local cities like Charlotte, is the philanthropy. There are so many nonprofits and so many individuals that support those nonprofits. I'll be at the Literacy Council event this Thursday, and if you look at my calendar of all the nonprofit events that you go to, I mean, you can hardly fit them all in, but there are hundreds of people at all of them. So that
Right.
I think it
Right.
really shows that people here care about Gaston County, about the success and the genuine nature of what this place is and what we can do for each other. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually think we have a table there with some of
I'll
our
see you there.
team members there. I won't be there personally, but I'm sure Lee will be there, and along with I think my wife and daughters might be
Awesome.
going too. So, but it's an interesting topic too.
It is. It's sold out in like a day.
Yeah, we'll maybe talk about that one later. But yeah, that's an interesting topic on something that kind of just grabbed everybody's attention a few years ago. So. I love this last question that we like to ask, Allie. So, knowing what you know now this was just 2 or 3 years ago. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Oh gosh, probably the same advice I give my 40-year-old self, which is try your hardest not to be embarrassed about that big energy, because it will help you overcome enormous hurdles, open doors that you didn't know existed, and give a lot of people hope along the way.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we've been doing 170 episodes of this, and I don't know that I've heard an answer specific to that like that. So that's very good.
Well, remind me that when I get really embarrassed at that big energy next time you see me.
Well, I think perspective comes with a little bit of experience.
Indeed.
I won't say age, but experience. And the things that used to embarrass me, I just don't embarrass me anymore.
This is true.
I've made so many mistakes and then made a fool of myself so many times.
That's how
no
we
big
learn.
deal. Yeah, it's no big deal. Speaking in front of people or going, it's being involved in so many things that just doesn't bother me anymore like it used to. My kids might think differently, but
Oh yes,
yeah.
they'll remind us all.
So, gosh, Allie, this has been great. So, where can listeners go to learn more about the museum, anything and everything you'd like to share, social media, just anything and everything?
Awesome. Yes, GastonCountyMuseum.org is our website.
It's a great website, too. I was on there.
Awesome. Thank you. And I would say follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we're on LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
But all of our programs and exhibits are out there, and we're doing all kinds of things. So come see us.
All right. And the ghost tours is the big thing right now. So,
Yes, Friday nights, 7 and 8 p.m.
all right. I think there's at least 2 more.
2 more.
So when this airs, there will be 2 more Fridays before. Well, matter of fact, are you doing some on Halloween?
We are not, because
Okay.
Dallas has a huge
Okay.
Halloween event.
So it'll be the 17th and the 24th.
Yes.
It's unusual that Halloween's on a Friday, which
Yes.
I'm sure the local kids here will be happy about that. Any last words before we close this episode out?
No, thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Well, you're very welcome. And again, I appreciate the work you're doing. Being from here and being involved in so many things, I'm aware of the museum and again all the good things that you were doing, and there does seem to be some different good and different energy about the museum.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I feel it.
I'm sure in my experiences that's always a leadership thing.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well done. So I'm going to finish with my own quote for the week that I normally do, and it always not always, but I think it specifically will tie in with the work that Allie's doing. And Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That just kind of ties into my general thought of we're better together. Community, companies, organizations, teams, doesn't matter. When you get a group together, we can accomplish so much more, headed in the same direction. So I think we need a little more of that working together thing. So to our listeners out there, thanks again for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast. And don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. Thanks again to Allie for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Rachel Coward this week from GSM Services. Last week, was it last week I had to include Amy? We need you back. I'm glad you're back. Rachel. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.